Welcome to Exploring Digital with Purr, a podcast for entrepreneurs and CEOs who want their businesses to benefit from a digital-first approach. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Exploring Digital with Purr. I'm joined today by Chris Gunn, who's the founder at Lovegunn, which is a design and branding agency specializing in turning customers into fans in a sector-agnostic approach. Hi, Christian. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you? How's it going?
Really well, yeah. Do you want to kick us off by telling everyone a little bit about yourself, your background, how you came to, I'm guessing, found Lovegunn and give it its eponymous name?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, I'm Chris Gunn. So I'm managing director and co-founder of Lovegunn. So we are 4 years old actually at the end of this month. So that'll be our fourth birthday. My background is originally in sport. Worked for a football club and a well-known UK charity. Focused in sport, working in events marketing, and then moved into the branding world. So worked in numerous branding agencies in account management, kind of business operations side. Before meeting my now co-founder Tom Love. We met at a previous agency. Tom was, on the creative side of things. I was on the account side of things. We had a similar outlook, a similar passion to start our own thing. And the rest is kind of history. So we started Lovegunn there and then.
Brilliant. So not glamorizing weapons, just a portmanteau.
Exactly, yeah. So my last name, obviously, Gunn, and Tom's last name is Love. It would be rude not to put those two names together. We did toy with Gunn Love, but we deemed that was a bit too Donald Trump, a bit too, terrifying. And we went with Lovegunn in the end, which seems to have gone down well, certainly memorable. And we own any underhand references.
Very good. I look forward to the branded merchandise.
Oh, absolutely.
From the the feel you get from your site and the position of the agency, it feels like it's very sort of strategy led. There's all of this collateral about positioning and purpose, and as you say, turning customers into fans. What's the process that you go through when you're building a brand strategy for a client, and how does that differentiate you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what we firmly believe is that to build a brand that is both engaging but also kind of withstand the test of time, you need to build some kind of essential foundations. And that really is based on the who, the why, the what, the how. So actually, who you are, who's your audience, what do you stand for actually, where have you got to this point today that has meant that, it's your successes, your failures, your learnings, and actually where do you want to get to in the future? And actually what you stand for, what makes you different, both in comparison to your competitors, but understanding your target audience, why you're doing it, where you want to get to, what does success look like, what achievements and where you're going to get to, and then also how. So, how you're going to do it that makes you different. We build that through, a quite clearly kind of defined and set process, which starts with a workshop. So we workshop with all of our clients to really understand them and who they are. We work as brand consultants and really embrace what they do as a business. They're experts in their fields, and how we're going to really kind of capture and grow where they're at, and get to that end goal. So for one company, it might mean we want to turn over X million. For another, it might be we want to reach zero carbon emissions, or everyone has a different passion, a different story. And for us, it's really distilling that, understanding it, building foundations around the who, the why, the what, the how, and then you can build brilliant creative experiences through identity. Numerous different touch points through the creative journey.
Do you think it's something that is proportional to the size of an organization? Whether an organization struggles to be introspective, and do you feel that can affect a brand strategy, or is it harder for you to tease out those details and make people think creatively about themselves?
Do you know what? It's every brief and every example is different. We as you noted, we are sector agnostic, and we made that decision because, we firmly believe taking inspiration from outside sector. You might be a sports client, but actually taking inspiration from fashion. You might be a packaging brand, but taking inspiration from music actually means better experiences, unique experiences, and one that will kind of lead change. So being sector agnostic, we get many different briefs. We work with a lot of startups. So that example, with startups is, they really need to establish a clear vision and a clear difference that we work with them to do. You'd hope somebody starts a business with a bright idea and have done enough research to kind of stress test that to make sure there's opportunity. But what we do is we, as a brand consultants, we make sure that is commercially viable. We stress test, we speak to the target market, we understand what consumers want is actually what they deem their customer the right customer. We challenge that, and then we build out what is the core strategy before then moving on to creative to ensure that is kind of tested. So that's one example of startups needing to really understand who they are and where they want to position themselves. But then we work with, large organizations where it can be a brand campaign rather than, a brand itself. So actually, what is the challenge? For example, working with the likes of Chelsea Football Club, they want to engage their global youth proposition. So actually, who are they? What is the age range? Where do they live? Where do they exist? What apps do they have on their phone? Where are they spending their dwell time outside of football? And what will inspire and engage them to engage with a Chelsea product rather than a Netflix or a YouTube one. I think it's understanding the strategy of both, whether it's a business, a campaign, or really getting to that end point. We always talk about the end result, actually, where what does success look like, whether it be a business, a brand, or a campaign itself?
And do you think that is that an area where people have made mistakes historically? Is that something you're able to tease out? Well, you might think success looks like this, but perhaps in the context, maybe we've seen these trends. You can advise, or you're able to angle a campaign a little bit differently.
Absolutely, and I think that's through the process as well. We are brand consultants. We're brought in to hopefully lean on our years of expertise and working with various different brands, businesses of different sizes and turnovers is actually stress testing the idea to make sure that it's a good one. So we use the startup example. First and foremost, the process of a workshop is, it's at the kind of most minimal end of the scale. It's a half a day workshop where we work through actually, what is this idea? Who is the customer? We're stress testing all along the way, actually, looking at the target market. Where do you sit in that market? Are you high tech, or actually are you, more commercially savvy? Actually, what are the key steps to success that we're going to distill and make, build your strategy from. And I think the key mistake is that upfront research that we take responsibility for, but also actually talking to the target market. We use social listening tools to actually understand what are the markets saying about a sector. So, for example, you might be a food and drink brand. You've got an oat milk, for example. What are people saying about the likes of Oatly and Linda McCartney and the other brands? Where are they shopping? What is their behavior? And then when we find a gap in the market, it's actually then going out and having one-on-one interviews, focus groups, target markets on actually what do they want from that oat milk? What do they want it to taste like? Where are they looking? Where are they shopping? What are they looking for? Is it the very best offers? But then also aesthetically, what colours resonate? What kind of messaging? Obviously oat milk is probably a bad example, but it's really trying to get to that unique. That unique difference that means that you can grow, but also last the test of time and actually have an idea that works. And we've been in workshops very recently, in fact, where we've worked with someone's come to us with an idea. We've workshopped that idea, and we found that actually there were hundreds of other competitors doing exactly the same thing. Rather than saying, great idea, but we've actually looked at it and there isn't any opportunity here. Thanks anyway. Good luck. We problem solve. So actually working out where the opportunity lies. So pivoting that to a niche audience, for example, niching it down initially and actually seeing what that growth looks like, or looking at other avenues of success. So it's bringing our expertise, but also it's kind of a facilitating exercise as well. We often say our workshops are a form of counselling, because it's getting multiple stakeholders in a room. We've been in workshops before where they haven't actually been in a room together ever. It's banding ideas around, actually understanding where the opportunity lies, what the potential problems are, kind of facilitating that process using our expertise, but really leaning on the expertise of people that know their sector, know their space, and hopefully have big ideas of where they want to go.
Absolutely, it's a good point you raise around startups being a nice example, because it's such a fresh proposition. We're exposed to, I guess, techier startups than oat milk, but we get involved in lots of MVP builds for early stage startups, and there's a fine line, because when we're planning a product or working on an initial technical spec, it depends on the nature of the funding model that they're going for, or how they're financing the MVP build. But the discussion around, have you considered monetization? How are you going to price this service if it is a service? And if it's we haven't considered that at all, and that's for later. Even if you're financially viable and you don't need to make the money early on, it's still often, as you say, it's the research that you've missed out early on that you really should not only use to influence price, but to influence the product. Because if you understand the price point and you understand who the buyer is, then you understand a lot more about what you've got to build. And having that, you might not consider it a brand strategy, but it's tied up in brand strategy and tied up in product development. It's such a kind of cross-discipline factor that you need to build into a business plan. But that then influences everything else. So you don't want to run off going off half-cocked.
Absolutely. And I think it's exactly that. But I think it's the wider vision as well. This is what we always talk to people about, is actually let's look at 1 year's time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time. You might have a sweet brand, but actually, 5 years' time, it's always been your dream to start a hotel chain. Actually, realistically, how are we going to work through those steps to get you to that end point and that end goal? And it's not like we're going to hand over millions of pounds or give you access to that to get to this hotel chain. But it's actually, what is the bigger idea? What is the wider thinking to get to this point? And we firmly believe these foundations around the who, the why, the what, the how, happening first and foremost, can then feed into the product development. You mentioned the tech side, actually, exploring what the pricing structure is, things like this. Actually, this is the end goal. This is where we want to get to, and actually breaking down those steps. It's almost like starting in year 5 and moving backwards. Often that is way too far in the future, even for us, for a small tech startup, for example, or a growing one. It's moving back for a shorter period of time. But it's all about goal setting, the wider vision, and what the bigger meaning is.
Would you say it's fair to characterize the brand strategy process as a sort of fluffy process, as you say, counseling in the middle, but bookended by or sandwiched by technology? So you're using these social listening tools, you're using whatever the market research technologies are that you're going to use to identify these customers and look at the platforms that they're on. And then at the other end, there's normally some form of technical rollout, whether that's a new lovely site for that brand representing its new structure and strategy, or a campaign that's got some underlying technology there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think more and more so that is, we're seeing the impact of technology there too. The use of social listening tools is a relatively new one for us in terms of, implementing it to every project that we work on. So it's actually understanding, pre-workshop or pre-kickoff, actually, what is the conversation around that product or that sector or that culture, and monitoring that all along the way. So actually, we can monitor what's going on on a kind of a top line level, but actually then, distill that along the way. We may have points of contention. We might have stakeholders that disagree on a certain matter. Actually, no, I want to target Gen Z, not millennials. And actually, we can look at what is the behavior across social. But also, I think moving away from tech too is actually talking to people and understanding their habits in person too. So through workshops, through market testing, that helps as well. And hand in hand, I think the technology, but also kind of the understanding people and your audience is important. But then, at the end stage as well, typically our niche processes from that workshop all the way through to delivering guidelines. So actually, we've gone through this process of establishing the who, the why, the what, the how, what they stand for as a business, what they mean. And then there's always a creative treatment, which typically is identity, overall art direction of the brand. And then, the final deliverable is guidelines. And that is then the foundations in place for us to then start working across websites or an app platform or a community platform or video or animation, all these different touch points. But the initial foundations are so important. But what is the beautiful thing about social listening is we are monitoring that throughout the journey. And I'd say the most important stage is arguably the initial one, understanding the landscape, but it is 3 to 6 months after we've launched a new brand, actually, especially B2C facing brands, actually, how is that brand performing? What is the conversation around it? That's not just sentiment to visually how the brand looks, but actually, where is the potential opportunity? So this brand is always growing, always evolving. It's growing in spaces that it needs to, either through, social media or marketing or advertising or actually product development itself. That technology is essential.
You touched on earlier the approach, whether it was from a millennial or a Gen Z. Is there a difference as to how you go about turning a customer into a fan based on the generation they fall into? Is it just the adoption of a different platform, or is it that there's actually a different way that you put the strategy together?
Yeah, I think we did an insight piece. I think it was last year on what Gen Z want. Obviously, we know lots of brands now are building out their narrative for a Gen Z audience as they kind of move into the adult world, for want of a better phrase. But also, the growth of TikTok and Instagram. So it's understanding what an authentic connection or experience means to Gen Z over millennials. It's the research and kind of development around what Gen Z want. Obviously, everybody's different, but it's authentic connections. It's all about community. It's all about tactile experiences as well. It's not just a digital focused. It's being able to share, being able to create your own content. TikTok and Instagram have given those that platform to share, but also create your own content to engage in what is authentic and real experiences. And then you look at Twitch as well, where you're able to be your own content creator, but also have conversation and communication on a mass scale. So I think what we're always really cautious about saying is also this is ever evolving too. What one person wants is very different to another, so it's all about demographic. It's where they live, where they even regionally, not just nationally. Kind of all around culture and there's so many different areas. Hence why technology like social listening is so important to understand where trends are moving and going. When you look at a millennial audience, it's I think it can boil down to platforms specifically, but actually how they engage. Is there still a market on TV, or is an influencer audience much more kind of applicable for that generation? I think it's ever moving, it's ever evolving, but for us, it's just trying to stay on top of it, which is obviously a difficult task.
An ever moving feast. So What about, have you seen it backfire? Is it just a case of, sometimes people don't get the right message for the platform, or it doesn't come across as inauthentic? Have you seen times where it really hasn't worked, trying to target a particular audience using a certain platform?
I don't think I have an example on that, mate.
No, don't worry.
Can you?
Well, hang on, let's go for a slightly different version of the question. So you're all about turning customers into fans. That's a state that may last a long time. It could be a short time. What happens when a fan becomes disengaged and actually moves away from a brand? How do you track that or adjust your strategy to deal with it?
Yeah, I think that's when a brand experience then kind of filters down into a campaign experience. Actually, what is so important for a brand, and again, this is why it's monitoring and maintaining, be it a campaign or marketing strategy or advertising. It's ever evolving and it's ever moving and it's ever changing. I think COVID was a really good example of that. How brands behaved and acted towards their audience, whether it was kind of supporting on a community basis. A really good example, being a football fan, I always use football as an example. And it pains me to do this because I'm not a massive fan. But Leicester City were a really good example of engaging across social, especially Twitter, with their audience, making sure they were replying to comments, engaging on a really authentic level. That meant that actually, when fans became disengaged and actually, on a much deeper level, as we all know, at the beginning of COVID, the beginning of lockdown, there was a bit of a shell shock factor. What is going on? This is all a bit new. Football being cancelled, and then actually, football clubs had to kind of innovate, change, and do things differently to engage their audience. And yeah, Leicester a good example doing that. I think, as basic again as, the fan cutouts, in stadiums sat on the seats where, you've got cutouts of fans there. It's one small idea that actually really works, that makes fans feel included. They're, them watching on screen, I can see myself in my season ticket, it's making people feel, that they're still involved and they're still cared about. And I think brands can take, a lot of, learnings and experiences from that too, to kind of really engage. But when with the difference between a customer and a fan, again, ever evolving and ever changing, but it's actually it's making an experience different and unique, but also actually it's trust as well. So actually the consistent messaging. Messaging that feels authentic. It's close to tone of voice. It's not dramatically changing, throughout that stage. So it's you want to innovate, you want to do things differently, but at the same time you need to stay authentic to what your brand represents and what your values really mean. It's no good an oil or gas company doing an advertising piece around sustainability during I don't know, World Sustainability Week. That's a really bad example, but it's inauthentic, and people will see through that. And that's I think really important. And I think an example that we were relatively outspoken about, we wrote a piece on it, was the Tesco's with their advertising campaign trying to influence people to go down to their local pub. The sentiment was good, of course, and I don't want to be one of those cynics that's always slagging off big brands for trying to do something good or something different. But it felt inauthentic. It felt it had been done before. For example, Burger King had done it, relatively high profile, but also the timing of it. It was confusing, and to us felt inauthentic and kind of unnecessary as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Is that a limitation, do you think, when you're putting a strategy together for a brand, going, well, look, this has been done before, you're going to seem late to the party. Maybe don't take that approach that you were previously thinking of, or we'd like to have done this, but someone's beaten us there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also that's the nature of our business. We're a startup for one, but also, we don't have a star necessarily, but we work across campaigns and brands where, we're doing something different, we're challenging. Typically brands come to businesses like ours because they want to do something different, they want new ideas, they want new thinking. And obviously we need to embrace that. And it's not like, every brief we get, we're thinking, wildly outside the box. Again, it's going back to what I've talked about for the last half an hour or so. It's really understanding your target market and where the opportunities lie, but also you've got to be different. There's got to be a point of difference, and that we typically work on the kind of essence of what makes a brand or a business, and then that stems down to the campaign level. So it's you can be relatively safe in terms of a brand point of view, but actually one of your values might be to challenge, do things a little bit differently, and then that's when you can look at it from a campaign perspective. So on one hand, I think it's playing it safe to the point that we don't want to push people so far that it fails, but at the same time, it's finding that point of difference by listening. And I think listening is the really key theme here.
Are there other limitations, or does it vary a bit? I'm guessing a startup, the limitation is primarily money, available, whereas a bigger brand, it might be that lack of appetite to do new things.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a key part of our process as well. Post workshop, we then go away. We do build together what is called the strategy, the words. This is who you are. This is what you stand for, whether it be the brand or a campaign, and then it's ideas. So we typically do 2 to 3 conceptual routes as part of our process. So if actually these are the different avenues. These are the different opportunities, and this is how far we can push it. So. What that does is actually, we can test the water to see how far, we want to move and how far we want to do things. But also, it's arguing different cases as well. Actually, we've found that actually there's this opportunity here where we can move in this direction, but there's actually, moving you away from your safe space, but actually this is more in that safe space area as well. But I think there are just numerous factors. Every business is different. As I said, the majority of startups or businesses that we work with, typically they're post seed A or seed B funding, just because of kind of the depth that we go into in our process. They're almost always, we're looking for turnover, or we're looking to grow or get to a certain point. But then with bigger brands or more B2C focused brands, it's actually engagement and growing the brand through in different areas, whether it's regionally or through a different social platform, or they want to change up the way that they, engage across video, or it's all of these different avenues, which is why the very first step is actually understanding what the problem is. We only have businesses come to us with a problem, whether it's engaging new audiences or they don't have a brand. There is always a problem, and we need to get to the root of that problem. And actually where the journey to getting to that problem was, and actually what the journey needs to be working together. Without it sounding too fluffy or cliche, it really is a collaboration, and we're really embracing the expertise of all those involved, whether it's just the client or the advisors or stakeholders, and bringing our own spin to the party as well.
So what's the plan for the rest of the year then, in terms of taking advantage of the way the country's opening back up or the world's opening back up? Are there new approaches or techniques you're going to be revisiting as a result of the world changing and people being able to connect in person again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think 2021's been an exciting and interesting year for us so far. Going back to the sector agnostic thing, we're working with a range of different businesses, but the common theme seems to be around community. So, we work with a challenger travel brand that's really focusing on, UK UK holidaying, seeing the opportunity there. So for us, it was a really exciting opportunity to really capture what it means to holiday, 2 hours from your doorstep, not necessarily 20 hours across the other side of the world. We're working with, medical tech company as well, working with, I shouldn't and can't say too much, but, working with helping, the vaccination process, actually easier booking technology and processes, and it all stems back to community, which we're really seeing a growth in, where we're moving as business as well is really putting more onus on that, understanding your market and your consumer, and really listening. Again, you're probably sick of hearing me bang on about it, but it's understanding through social listening a wider landscape, but then that one-on-one workshopping, market testing to understand what people want and what an authentic experience means to that person. It's growing that process. And I think we're putting a lot more onus on that kind of workshop research phase to make sure that we are really kind of stress testing those areas, which is all the more important with this change, with things opening back up. Making sure that those experiences that have become so important across social and across digital, which brands have rightly so been really bolstering, it's making sure that they transcend into a physical space. So again, using a football club as an example, it's they've grown across social. They might have engaged through esports or video gamification, but actually then how does that transcend to football stadiums reopening and the experience around a match day? 90 minutes on a football club. Every football club's problem has always been how can we capture the attention and experiences of a football fan before and after the game. In the US, in American football, for example, they do it really well. People get there 3 hours before and are tailgating and stay 3 hours after to party, beyond the game of football. So how football clubs can do that, can carry on that experience through digital, through social, but also it's continuing to engage new audiences on a global and global landscape.
Cool. So that topic of listening and having this more of a community engagement before and after the fact, would that be your top tip for businesses at the moment, or can it be refined even further?
Yeah, I'd say we'll refine that for sure. I think it's really I couldn't put the onus more on authenticity and actually understanding what that experience means to your consumer and your target market. It's the longevity and success in terms of that engagement is through multiple touch points, and the onus for the last 18 months has really been on digital and social. Lots of different brands have had to accelerate how they engage across social or across digital, but actually it's taking it back to those personal experiences, be that through events or I don't know, out of home advertising. It's making sure that the physical experience of a brand is growing, and is the onus is there too, through that authenticity. That was a bit of a rambling reply, but
no, that makes perfect sense. No, trying to support the engagement and the community you've built up virtually through more in-person things, and making it all tie together a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. And I look forward to experiencing more of these touch points.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, that's the one.
Were you yeah. Brilliant. Well, look, Christian, thanks so much for chatting. It's been really interesting having that discussion, and all the best for 2021.
Thank you very much, Nick. Appreciate it. Take care.
All the best. Thanks, everyone, for joining another episode of Exploring Digital with Purr. See you again next time. Thanks for joining. Remember to subscribe and follow us, and to share today's insights with other businesses you know who want to stay relevant in a digital-first world.